Okay. So, sorry. When Illustrator opens, it will look very, very similar to Photoshop. These are like my past projects and stuff that I've been working on, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go click on Create New. And I'd like you guys to do that with me. Just kind of waiting a little bit. So you see when you click on Create New, oh, that's fun, Austin. When you click on Create New, you have all these selections on the right-hand side. Remember, that's when we kind of got introduced to Photoshop. We talked about pixels. We talked about your height and your width. And we talked about what pixel ratio, your resolution ratio to save it as, and all these different things, okay? So we have to do similar things in Illustrator, but Illustrator functions differently. And I talked to you guys about this when we first started Photoshop. Photoshop works in what's called pixels. Illustrator works in what's called vectors. So I'll touch on that in a second, a little bit more. So up here on the title of my file, you are going to turn this one in. So I want you to title it last name test. Okay, last name test. This will be due at the end of, hopefully at the end of the day today. I'll put the assignment on when we finish, but it'll be due so I can make sure that you've gone through this process and you have this first section complete. If you're watching this later, because you're not in class right now and you're watching it later, still follow these steps, turn the file in, and it'll end up getting you credit and all that fun stuff, okay? And you'll be caught up with everybody else. Okay, remember, for everything we do when we're making our file, we have to first set what our units of measure is. Your default should probably be, I think it's points right now. We don't want to go with points. We want to go with inches because of what we know. We know inches. We work in inches. We understand how that functions. So make sure that this is inches. Okay, cool. That's totally fine, Luna. If that means you might have started right off the bat. Go ahead and, Luna, click on the tab. Hold on, everybody, pause real quick. I want to make sure we don't lose Luna. It'll look like this. It should look like this, Luna. Is that what yours looks like already? Okay, and if anybody else's looks like this already, just go ahead up here in the tab and click on the little X to get rid of it, and that'll bring you back to this page where we are, and then go to Create New on the left-hand side. So just close out that tab and then come back up to Create New. Okay, so with Create New that I have here, again, let me retype this. So test. I'm going to set this to inches. I'm going to take my width, and let's go ahead and make it 10, and take my height and make it 10. That means if I see your screen later or your project you turn in, it should be a perfect square. Artboards we're not going to mess with. We'll leave that at 1. We'll mess with that when we get to graphic design 2. And then the rest of it I don't really have to worry about. We can go into advanced down here and change our color mode and our PPI and all that stuff, our pixel ratio. But we don't need to worry about that right now. We just kind of leave it 10 by 10 inches and go create. Okay. And when you get like, should look like this. Sorry, all my stuff's over on this side. I gotta switch it over here. It should open up and look fairly similar to Photoshop in terms of all the things that I have available. I'll have my tools over here. I have my layers and some other things like my color and all that over on this side. It's starting to kind of piece itself together. Do me a favor, when you get this part done and you're open, ready to go, type the word open in the chat so I can make sure we're all on the same page. I'm getting a good feeling about this morning. Open the file one more time. 10 by 10, Adi. Yeah, so that one more time for you guys. If you're already there, go ahead and hang out. You go to create new. I open this new page. Go to create new. My title will be my last name and test. Awesome, Alexa. Thanks for letting me know. Thank you, Logan. So Reynoso test, inches. This is going to be set to inches because we're using like rulers. Go 10 by 10 and then press create. That worked, Mason? Ten by 10 is our file size. So Luna, where it says width and height, make sure it's set to inches right here. Create button doesn't pop up. If you don't have a create button, then you can go up here and go file. We can't close this. I'll go to file and I'll go new, Alexa. Also, Alexa, make sure you have that little expand arrow pushed up in the top of your screen. If you're on a Chromebook, I believe you're on a Chromebook. It'll expand the screen and then your create might pop up. You have to scroll down, Austin. Awesome. Thanks for your help, bud. What más? Also test 10 by 10. Create. Boom. Shakalaka. I'm sorry, Luna. Alexa, play hip hop greatest hits. Did that work? Okay. All right. Sorry. That's awesome. Okay. Sorry. I'll stop. All right. So that made my morning. So here we go on the left-hand side. Now, my tools look like this. There are two of them side by side. And if I don't like that, I can click on these little double arrows and I can make a long one. Those of you with shorter screens, you probably want to have this selected where you can see them both side by side. Okay. I can't make this bigger, can I? No. Okay. Here's our canvas like we normally have in Photoshop. And then over here, we should have something that says layers. Okay. There might be other things connected to it, but layers is the one we want to work with. That'll kind of take us back home, almost like Photoshop. Okay. Now, the thing we need to understand about this is a fundamental difference between Illustrator and Photoshop. Photoshop is like using a spray can where you're spraying and you're adding pixels onto your canvas. Okay. You are applying ink, paint, whatever, a picture. Illustrator is really like creating art with stickers, like shapes. Okay, think about two. I don't know about how many of you have ever used felt boards. Okay, so felt boards is like in preschool or like Sunday school at church or something like that. They had like a big board that had felt on it, and you have little felt like animals and triangles and squares. And you like stick the felt onto other felt, and you build little scenes. It's kind of like that in a very remedial sense. Okay, so this doesn't work the same way that Photoshop does. We got to make sure that we don't try to use it like Photoshop does, like Photoshop works. There's a pen tool up here. We're not going to mess with that. That's not like you click on it and drag and draw like you do a paintbrush or something in a Photoshop. It's a totally different world. Okay. Now, understand too, hold on. Yeah, oh my Sorry. So in Illustrator also, on Photoshop, you can't color outside of the canvas. In Illustrator, kind of your whole screen's a canvas, okay? What gets saved and showed later depends on how you save the file, which we'll talk about. But for now, we're just going to kind of play with this a little bit. So here's my layer 1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click on the 5th tool down on the left-hand side if you have it doubled over like this. And it should be like a rectangle, and that's your shape tool, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and hold on it. Now follow along with me, and look what I'm going to do. I'm going to come over here, and instead of clicking on one of these things, there's a little arrow on the outside here. I'm still holding my mouse. I'm going to release my mouse there on that arrow. And what that does is it tears this off for me, meaning I now don't have to click and hold that. I can click and select these different things, okay? So what I want you to do right now is go right here and click and drag a rectangle onto your canvas, just like me. Don't jump ahead. Don't play around with it. Make it confused. Just click on your rectangle tool, click and drag the rectangle tool, and just make a generic rectangle like I did. Okay. Hopefully we're all on the same page right now. Now, the first thing I want to show you with your shapes that we make, because again, we're going to use shapes to make our images. Down here is totally different. Remember, in Photoshop, the one on the left was our foreground color. So that's the color that you want your paint to be. And the one on the right was our background color, which is the color that you erase to. It's totally different in Illustrator. The left one, if you hover over it, it says fill, and that is our fill color. The right one is hollow in the middle, right? It says stroke, and the stroke means the outside of our shape. So right now, if you look at this, let me click on my shape is selected. That's why it's blue and has a little bounding boxes. Bounding boxes are always in Illustrator. So remember how in Photoshop you had SpongeBob, you had to press Control-T or go to Edit, Transform, and a bounding box would pop up, and you can make him smaller or bigger. Every shape you make in Illustrator comes with its own bounding box that you can adjust it and stuff, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my white arrow up on top, and I'm going to click on the white of my canvas. And what that does is that deselects my shape. Okay, here's some notes for you. You can draw a little picture of it if you want, or you can just write it. We have our white arrow and we have our dark arrow. Okay, our white arrows on the right, our dark arrows on the left. That makes your arrow dark. This makes your arrow white. Here's the difference between the two of them. The white arrow, this is what I want you to write down so you can come back to it. I'm going to reference this 1,000 times in the next 2-3 weeks that we have left. Okay. The white arrow is called our direct selection tool. And it does exactly that. It directly selects. I'm not going to show you it yet. I'm just going to tell you. The white arrow is our direct selection tool. Now, what you can write down for the direct selection tool, the direct selection tool allows you to select individual anchor points and paths. Okay? The direct selection tool allows you to select individual anchor points and paths. The selection tool, the black one, allows you to select whole shapes and manipulate them. So the direct selection tool allows you to select individual anchor points and paths. You don't know what those are yet. We'll get to it. Don't worry. And then the selection tool, the black one, allows you to select whole shapes and manipulate them. If we had a giant paper test that you had to go through and take, like a Google test you had to take, these would be two of the questions on there with the definitions that you need to know. Okay? I'm not going to give you a test. Just understand when I say, hey, use the direct selection tool, and you go, which one's that? I'm going to say, you weren't paying attention. So make sure you have that understood. Okay? So I'll leave those up there for now. I'll grab my direct selection tool. As we can also see, the quick key for the direct selection tool is A. And understand that I usually kind of live in this tool. I'll always go back and default to this tool because it helps me when I'm moving stuff around. And then if I want to turn it into the black arrow, can someone type the button you think we should push to flip it into the black arrow? Haha, Daniel, my man. Yes, Alt. Remember, Alt flips our tools. So if I have this right here, oh, Daniel, you were right. Or I thought you were right. We're both wrong. It's Control. Sorry. It's Control. I thought it was Alt. Control will flip it into the black arrow, and then I can use it. So, funny. So what's going to happen now? This shape right here, I have this shape. It's filled white. It has a black stroke. See right here? This my fill color is white. Has a black stroke. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click here. And I'm going to fill it with red. Really pretty red. And I press OK. And it doesn't work. Do you know why? It doesn't work because you have to make sure the shape is selected. Eventually, you're going to have like maybe a ton of different shapes on here. So you can't just arbitrarily pick a color. Okay? What I need to do is I need to click on the shape. Now my shape is selected. And then I can come over here and I can double click. I can drag it to red. I can press OK. And now I have a red fill with a black stroke. Okay? Please, right now, take your shape, fill it with one color, and then leave the stroke of it black. Please do so now. I hope you're doing it because I have no idea if you are or not. Okay. Now, let me show you something real fast. Thank you, Steven. Let me show you something real quick. I'm going to come back to this. You don't do this. I'm just going to show you a fundamental difference between the two. I'm going to go with my circle tool. And I'm going to take my circle tool and I'm going to fill it black. Again, you don't need to do this. I'm just showing you. Sit back and watch. Enjoy. Okay. I have a black circle here. And this is kind of what Austin had mentioned this in the chat earlier. I'm going to go back to Photoshop. Again, you don't need to do this. Just pay attention. If I grab my paintbrush, and I'm going to take my paintbrush, and I'm going to take the hardness all the way up to 100. So I take the edge of my brush, and it makes it 100. And I go like this. Oh, it's white. Huh? You can't see it. Black. I go, boop. We have a black circle. But we understand that this is made with pixels. So if I go like this, and I zoom, and I zoom, and I zoom, we start seeing those pixels. And I can go all the way to my magnifying glass turns white. I can't magnify anymore. And we see that I have all these little gray pixels along the outside of my screen. Now I'm going to go with Alt. Oh, sorry, Control. Alt. And I'm going to go like this. If I go to Illustrator, Oh, come back. And I grab my zoom tool, again on the bottom of our toolbar, and I zoom in. All the way to my magnifying glass is empty. As far as I can zoom in. It never pixelates. Okay? It never pixelates. Let me move this back out. The reason why is because, again, Illustrator functions in the word that you should write really, really big on your notes, vectors, V-E-C-T-O-R. It's a vector-based program, which means when I'm doing my work, it's making shapes like this. It's not making paint on a canvas. It's building shapes. And eventually all the shapes are just filled. Okay? So it's shapes that are filled with a color. So with that being said, let me press A. I'll select this. I will delete my shape by clicking backspace. I will come over here. I will go like this. I'll get my red back to fill. And I'm back where you guys are. Okay, so now let's start looking at our layers a little bit. Okay, because layers function a little bit differently here in Illustrator world. Over on my right-hand side, I have my layers. Some of the things are the same, where I have this eyeball. If I press the eyeball, it'll turn my layer off. If I turn the layer on, I can see it again. Okay, I have my thumbnail right here, which shows me what it looks like. I have the name of my layer, and then I have this new thing over here, this little dot. Okay, what that dot does is if I click on my layer and my shape and I select it, it'll say, hey, you have something in this layer that's selected, which is very, very helpful when I have like 50, 60 layers. Okay. The other thing about this layer that's really interesting. Hold on one second. If I go like this with my rectangle tool, and I go like this, oh my gosh. Now remember, in Photoshop, when you paint on a canvas and you keep painting on it, it just kind of layers itself like spray paint. Remember, we're not using spray paint, we're using stickers, we're using shapes. So with my direct select tool that allows you to select individual anchor points and paths, also shapes, I forgot to add individual anchor points, shapes, you can add it on the end of it if you want, and paths. I can click here and I can move this, and I can click here and I can move this, and click here and I can move this. Okay, so I can still adjust these. Now it's hard because if I want to pull this shape in front of this shape, I only have one layer. So that's kind of a problem, right? Because in the past in Photoshop we had multiple layers. We go like this. Well, look what happens automatically in Illustrator. I have all these shapes in this layer, right? Follow me? Go ahead and make like 5 more rectangles on your canvas. So now that you have a bunch of shapes kind of laid out on your canvas, you see right next to the thumbnail, there's this little arrow. If I click on that drop arrow, look what happens. It ends up showing every single shape that I have on here. Okay, so it's super helpful for me. Now it's still in one layer, but all of the shapes are in what are called sublayers. So if I want to manipulate this one right here, all I gotta do is click on it, and then look over here. See this little blue box? That shows me where that layer is. So now if I want to, I can grab this layer and drag it above all the rest of them. And if you watch my screen, now that shape comes to the front. Okay? Pretty fun that way in terms of being able to organize things. What I can also do is I can, let's see, I can come over here and say I want to click the lowermost layer. I can click on this circle, and now it selects that shape for me because I don't know where this shape is. Where's the lowest shape on here? I have no idea. Maybe it's this one. Maybe it's this one back here because that looks like it's pretty far back. Well, if I click on the circle, it will then select it for me, and now I know it's over here. So this is the one that I want to have in front because this was the farthest back layer. So I can go like this, and I can drag that one to the very top, and now that one's in front. So I can reorganize things. Okay, pretty cool. Okay, so that's another way to do that. So that's how my layers are kind of working right now. If I would like to, I can even add another layer. So watch this. All of these layers that we select should have a little blue outline around them. Okay, and with that blue outline, what that's telling you is that with this blue shape, they're all in the blue layer. If I click and drag a box with my selection tool around all of my shapes, all of them are selected. See over here, all these blue boxes are selected. And now I can take my move tool, or my selection tool, and I can click and drag, and I can move these all around. I got the text too. If I don't want them selected, I just click on my white canvas. They all deselect, and I'm good to go. Now watch this. I'm going to go to my layer 1. You can do the same thing. Go to layer 1. And then you're going to come down to this little post-it looking thing. It's like a post-it with a corner turned up. And I'll click there. That will give me layer 2. Now look at the difference. Look at the only difference that we see. Layer 1, if I close this, has a little blue line here. And layer 2 has a little red line there. Watch what happens. If I have layer 2 selected, I'm going to go ahead and change my fill color to let's go with a yellow. And I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to make a yellow rectangle. And I'm going to make another yellow rectangle, and another yellow rectangle, and another yellow rectangle. Notice that red is also in the outline or the selection color of my yellow. So that means red is assigned to layer 2, blue is assigned to layer 1. So if I click on one of these, it's going to be blue. Click on one of these, it's going to be red because they're in different layers. Now I can, if I would like to, select one of these, like this one right here, and I will click and drag this down to here. And now it's blue. Because now it's in layer 2. I can drag it all the way down here, put it underneath some of these, and now I have this layering process. Okay? Pretty fun. And then I can, let's see what else I can do. Oh, here's another thing I can do we didn't talk about. So I like this yellow, but it's too big. I want it smaller. Well, remember up here, the black arrow selection tool allows you to select whole shapes and manipulate them. So if I select this with my white tool, and then I click on my black arrow, or I hold Control, now it has a bounding box. And now I can click, and I can drag, and I can adjust it. So I can make this smaller, or I can make it taller and thinner. See that? Who can remind us the button that we press? So I can take this shape right here, and I want to make it smaller, but I want to keep it proportionate. I don't want it to stretch or skew. It's a very, very important button. What button do we hold as we move it to keep it in the same shape? Shift. Shift is correct. Shift is the button that we press to hold it all together. Okay? So what we're going to do is we can adjust those shapes. We can kind of play with it a little bit. Okay? Any questions you guys have with how layers are functioning and how shapes are functioning? Oh, fun, Austin. That's cool to hear. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to clear this entire canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my white arrow, my direct selection arrow. I'm going to drag a box around the entire canvas so everything is selected, text and all. And I'm going to press backspace. Knocks it out. Okay. Over here, we have rounded rectangles. We have ovals or ellipses. What is that, a hexagon? Right? Polygon. We have stars. And then we have this one. This is like my least favorite tool ever. It's called a flare tool, and it's stupid. You go like this. Ooh. You go like this. And it gives like light flares or something. I hate it. It's dumb. There's no point to it. So don't use the flare tool. But you can use the other ones. Rectangles, stars, all that stuff. Okay. One last thing that I have for you, and then I'm going to let you guys work for the rest of the day. Okay. So with this shape tool, now I can also adjust my stroke a little bit. So let me zoom in. And then I'm going to go up to my window. Everybody go to window. Oh, that's weird. You should. That's super weird. I've never heard that before, Logan. Go up to window. And then go down. It's in alphabetical order. And find the one that says stroke. Walter 2? Really? That's strange. I wonder if you can get rid of them? No, that's weird. Huh, I don't know what to tell you about that. That's interesting. So what I'm going to do is I have my stroke now down here. It may look like this. It may look like this. Oops. If it looks like this, it just says wait with a point. You can click on these three lines and go to show options, and then I'll open like this big thing. But the whole point of looking at this is your stroke, as we can see right here. My shape is really the yellow, but the stroke is this black outline around it. Okay? So what I'm going to do, Naomi, shh, quiet, honey. What I can do is my weight of my stroke right now is 1. So with my shape selected, you can see that it's red, so it's selected. I can take the weight of my stroke up. And what that does with my stroke, this makes it look thicker. I can also adjust over here where it says align stroke. I have it to the center. I can go inside or I can go outside. So I can do any of those as well. Okay. And then if I want to as well, say I want the shape, but I don't want any stroke on it. I'll come over here to my colors, and you see here's my fill color and here's my stroke color. And then underneath I have a fill. This is called a gradient. And then this one right here, the white box with a red line through it, that means it's nothing. It's transparent. That's super weird. There's probably a setting. I'll look for the setting to see why you guys don't have those extra tools. Did you guys click and hold on it and pop the whole thing out and all that? You have a square and you have a circle, but you don't have the rounded rectangle or the flare? Okay. Cool. I'll try to look into how to fix that. Okay, guys? So I can do it like this. If I click on my stroke color, which I can adjust if I want. I can change those colors if I want. or I can click on the white box with the red line through it, and that makes it transparent. So it looks like this. So it's just the shape itself. Vice versa, what I could do is I could take my stroke color. So I'll go like this. My stroke is that color. Oops, I got to select my shape first. Stroke color will be this purple color. And I will make it larger. Okay, like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fill color now, and I'm going to make that transparent. So it looks like that. Now, you say, okay, cool, Reynoso, but how do I know that's transparent? Well, there's a couple things I can do. One is I can do, this is something you need to write down. View, go to View, and then go down to Show Transparency Grid. And when I do that, there's our transparency grid. Same one we had in Photoshop, remember? So I can use this to always have a transparency grid down, and now you really see what my shapes are. And I can now see that this is transparent. Also, if I drag it over here, you see it's behind everything else. But if I come to my layer and I select that layer, and then I drag that layer to the top, now you can see it's transparent because these layers are shown behind it. Cool? Okay. How do I turn the inside transparent, Jake? Is that what you're asking? All I do is I adjust the fill color here. Oh, transparency grid. Got it. Go to View. And then go down to, now it says Hide Transparency Grid, but Show Transparency Grid is what yours would say. Or as you see the quick keys, Shift, Control, and D is how you pull that out. Okay? So for your assignment for today, if you have your something that's kind of like this, that's great. What I want you to do is just throw down a couple shapes. You can make a little face or something like that if you want to, but just throw down a couple shapes. Show me that you kind of understand the concept. And then you're going to save the file, and you're going to turn it in to our class page, okay? The default, let me go to save it. If I go File, Save As, the default is Adobe Illustrator, a .ai. You can save it as that and turn it in, and I'll see what it looks like. So go ahead and make sure it's your last name test. Save it as Adobe Illustrator. Load it to your Google Drive, and then you can turn that into the assignment that I will post as soon as I jump off this class, okay? The video will be posted later today because it takes a while to load and stuff like that, but I'll have it posted by lunchtime, around 12 or so, all right? Any questions you guys got for me with that stuff that we just covered? Giving time to type. Nope. Cool. Okay. Well, with that being said, then guys, go ahead and log off. Get to work on this thing. Should be fairly quick. Save it up, turn it in, and you'll be good for the day.